Whoa, 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 whoa. Welcome back to the Raice Brothers podcast. Hey, guys. We're back here together, Yaakov and myself today. And wow, the world just keeps on getting even more nutty. It's interesting how, like, when we originally started this podcast, we wanted to get into a lot of current events that are involved in the daily Jewish life and the ups and downs and meaning and purpose in today's Jewish world. And we've completely got overwhelmed with some like life-changing events, Corona and then everything else that's kind of come off that. And it's taken us to a whole new place in dealing with what is facing the Jewish world and how do we want to respond in today's world. So I think that we definitely are trying to talk about these crazy things, and we're excited to be back and talking about some of these things. And we have a few interesting ideas that we'd like to explore today. So we're super excited to have you all on board with us. Hey, Yaakov.
Super excited.
Hey, Yaakov, how are you?
I'm all right. Surviving. Thank God. Just sitting here in my living room in Beit Shemesh, Israel, watching the reality show that is our world.
Yeah. So I think today we want to jump off. I want to read something. I was doing a reread of one of Gerald Schroeder's books. And this actually was a paragraph just that was in the introduction. And definitely not what the trajectory of the book is completely going on. But this one paragraph kind of, it brought together like some clear points. And I think that I would like to talk about that I think is definitely an issue facing today's world. And I want to share it with you all and read it. And maybe we can open it up a little bit and talk about it.
Right on.
So we're going to jump straight in. In his words, unfortunately, the profusion of the material benefits that we experience in the 20th century Western world has not brought in its wake the holistic tranquility we all seek. The widespread abuse of drugs and alcohol and the all too common cynicism and depression in today's societies stem from the failure of our newly found material bounty to satisfy our multifaceted needs. It may have the sound of a triviality, but in fact we have rediscovered the deep reality that not by bread alone does man live. Science and technology have diminished the physical burdens in our lives. However, the enigmatic relation between the brain and the mind, between, for example, the physical gratification of a desire and the resulting sensation of happiness, indicates that there's an aspect of life that exceeds that which is intellectually tangible. It has been a long, slow process, but we are finally realizing that within each of us there is a spiritual as well as a material aspect. Not one of us is an exception. If a human is to function as a harmonious unit, if the sought-after tranquility is to be found, then both the spirit and the body must be nourished. Now, this was so, like, I love this paragraph, and I think that there's a number of things that have really, really begun to be profoundly, they're hitting this world in a huge way. And I think in a major way in current events, they're really exploding. But let's start simply, right? In the last, 200 years, we've had an explosion of an advancement, even a little more than that, an advancement of since the Industrial Revolution. Really, we've been having these like consistent new industrial revolutions where more and more of the world is becoming more, mechanized and we have less work, so to speak, that we need to do. Many of us, because of the global reality of the world, we have, one person can be working on one small area of developing one small aspect of a phone, and there's just so much technology that has reduced the workload and that has opened us up to be able to advance in so many areas. And whereas, a couple hundred years ago, and even less, all you needed to do was work all day at your farm, creating food, creating something that you could basically live on. Now, it's not about just working to live. It's about working to have more than, to be entertained, to have pleasure. I think one of the classic things I talk about all the time, probably even mentioned it on here, is how when I take a shower, I love to stand in my shower, and as I put the exact temperature that I want, I just imagine how incredible this is. You know, most of the existence of the world, nobody was able to have this pleasure of standing under flowing water at exactly the temperature that you want, and you can get exactly the pressure, and it can hit exactly those right spots. It's amazing. And yet they never had this, and we have so much wealth that even the least of us, at least in the developed countries, um, even the least of us has so much more wealth. Like for my little apartment, living in Israel, it's probably more valuable than an entire king's palace. You know, like they had in their palace, they had constant, burning open fires, and they didn't have heat and AC, and they didn't have running water, and going to the bathroom was an issue. You know, everything was an issue. And yet with this incredible growth and with this incredible wealth of physical pleasure and sustenance, and with all this, we don't seem to be happier. We don't seem to be more fulfilled. As a matter of fact, we're actually maybe even in some ways more thirsty. In some ways, maybe we can more openly feel that need, that there's something deeper that's within me as a human being that I need to fill, and that hole aches even more these days.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to one of Joe Rogan's podcasts recently, where he was interviewing a fellow who had spent some time living out in small villages in Siberia with these indigenous tribes over there. And he said the tribes that were out living their original lifestyle, living with the herds of was elk or caribou, and living off the land, and there's always something to do. There's a spot, you had to constantly work. Interestingly enough, things that people in maybe Western or America do for pleasure was their life. They had to constantly be hunting and trapping and fishing, and they were happy. And the people who lived in the villages, who weren't out there, were all getting into alcoholism and fights and misery, to absolute depression. So it was interesting to notice that. And he pointed that out. And the question was, well, why is that? No, they didn't have an answer for it, but it's definitely noticeable.
Yeah, I think even the people that are out there, and living that quiet life, and hunting and trapping and fishing, even they, when they come back to civilization, they also lose themselves in in alcohol or whatever the physical pleasure, the taivas that are there, right? They just lose themselves. And until you get back at it. I think I actually remember, I think I might have heard a piece of this as well, where he was saying that they actually take a bunch of alcohol back with them out there, but they only finish it up in the first couple of days. And once they finish the alcohol, they kind of go back to living that healthy, aligned life, living out there with nature. But it's a crazy thing. It's a really crazy thing to be able to have that balance. And I think that those guys that are living out there in nature, in many ways, they're not dealing with some of the questions that maybe we're being faced with. They're not dealing with the depressions and these things, because they're just dealing with survival. And when you're just dealing with survival, you're not really faced with with these deeper questions until you have a moment to pause.
Maybe. But on the other hand, you're saying is they're so distracted by what they have to be doing that they don't have the time to deal with these questions. I don't think that's the case. I think there's something else going on. I think that there's a way that human beings are meant to live, and I'm not I'm not a proponent of the noble savage myth, but I think that clearly, even if you look at it from a point of human beings evolved to adapt a certain way to live in the world, and and suddenly 100 years ago everything changes, and we have not adapted. We are now in the process of adapting to a new world, which is faster than what we were evolved to live in, much faster and much more global. my wife pointed out to me the other day that the amount of news we consume, it doesn't make sense. It's not healthy. I mean, most of humans, most of human, for most of the time of human civilization, you only knew what happened around you. Maybe you got a messenger or a news report, a newspaper that was very old, and you heard things that were going on. But nowadays we have live reports from all over the world, and it's a flood. And how are we meant to deal with that? It's hard for us to deal with that constantly. The misery and the pain that we hear about, and the struggles and the frustrations and the craziness, it's not normal. And by normal, I mean it's not what we've been evolved to be able to deal with. So I don't know that it's the distraction. I mean, you talk about, I was recently reading about in Rabbi Leo Kitov about David HaMelech, who spent all of his formative years out in the hills with the sheep. He was the shepherd. He was the servant boy for his family because they treated him like a mamzer, etc. But that's where he spent a lot of his time communing with God and thinking about, because he wasn't distracted by all the things in civilization. So he was able to think about the deeper things in life and able to think about and to connect to spirituality. There's something very spiritual about being in nature. We all know that. When you go out to a forest, you're so much more open, or you go out to nature, you're so much more open to being spiritual and connected. So I don't know that you're distracted because you're busy with survival, or maybe it's you're more in tune with what's going on because you're in tune with the world as it's meant to be. I don't know.
Just to make myself clear, I agree with you about that. Like for the most part, I didn't mean that they were busy. Meaning this specific tribe that you had mentioned, or these people that were living in Siberia, they themselves, meaning the people themselves, that when they were in the hills, when they were out, most months of the year, they were living this healthy, cohesive lifestyle. But as soon as they came back to the city, they themselves were drinking themselves silly. They themselves were not, they are. I mean, these people are still there doing it. They're still, when they come in, they were losing themselves. And what I mean is that, and yeah, there's definitely a certain part of being out in nature that itself, meaning there's a spirituality within nature. There's a sustenance. When we talk about, like, let's say, like the way Gerald Schroeder was writing, that balance of feeding the spirit as well as the body, and there's a healthy balance there. So when you're out in nature, there's a spiritual sustenance that you get from being out in nature that doesn't necessarily come from, being aligned with deeper purpose and meaning, right? It's just from being out there that allows your spirit to soar, allows yourself to connect with something larger than yourself. It allows you to fit within a greater picture. And even if that doesn't necessarily mean, belief in a higher power, without even getting to that part, even though that's an essential part, I believe. But just being out there, when you become part of nature, you're not in this manufactured world. You're able to just, your body itself, the core existence level of your body just kind of mellows out. You kind of become part of the nature. You become part of something bigger. In structured civilization, things are very isolated. You're dealing with a world that is constantly broken down into parts, into separate people, into everything is, you're living so much in the thoughts and in the minds of man.
Wait a second.
So I think that when we're talking about making a space for us to be able to be like aligned and to be able to be connected, and we're talking about like the spiritual and the physical, and I'm saying how kind of maybe in some way the Western advances that we've had in our lives, the way that it's holding us back is that this abundance of physical gratification actually in some ways takes us out of our aligned spiritual side of self. Meaning for when you're out there in the forest and you have to work and you have to use your creativeness to get a fire going and to hunt and to survive. It opens up, I think, that maybe works together with the idea of being within nature and having that spiritual side growing. But I think that even more so is that not having that, meaning having all this physical pleasure and having all this comfort, we become more, maybe it changes the direction of the way a human being is supposed to be going. You know what I mean? Like maybe a human being is not supposed to be so inwardly focused. And so therefore when he's self-serving and things are so comfortable and there's so much pleasures and there's so much me orientedness, the narcissism that we've seen around has gotten to, it's gotten insane. And maybe those things kind of change the directional energy, so to speak, within an Adam, within a human, as opposed to being doing and making things happen and being a giver and being part of a nature and seeing the flow of how things need to be. I don't know if I'm explaining myself clear enough.
I don't know, but I think maybe I can say, I'm not sure if I'm on the same page as you, but I think in a very simple way, when you talk about meaning, meaningful life, not on a deep level of meaning, but on a very simple level of meaning. I'm doing things right now. I appreciate what I eat because I worked for it, because I created it, because I fished it, I trapped it. And there is something much more satisfying about eating a fish that you caught than one that you bought in the store. And I think that in terms of appreciating life, when we have so much and we lose sight of where it comes from, when people think that bread comes from a store and it just should be there, and if there's a shortage of something in the store, it's like, why is there no brown sugar? What is going on? Where's the brown sugar? It's supposed to be on the shelf in the brown sugar section. There's so many things we come to take for granted in life, and without appreciating, and when I talk about meaning, I mean just simply, I'm doing something in order to feed myself or feed my family. And even in a level of olam chesed ibana, we lose sight of, we're constantly doing chesed. When you have a family or you have people that you're responsible for, you're constantly involved in chesed and doing for others. But we lose sight of that because if my job is to go and do one particular aspect of something, I don't feel like I'm doing chesed, and it can end up feeling very meaningless. Or even if I'm whatever it is, whatever job, if you're not satisfied, you don't feel like your job is doing something for the world and doing something really meaningful to improve people's lives, then it also takes away. Whereas when I'm going and I'm creating a meal, I'm living in the world, and I'm just these people out there, and everything they're doing is very meaningful because I know exactly what I'm doing it for. I'm here to help my tribe survive. We're creating dinner for tonight and for the next week, and now we're building our shelter for the winter. It's all, in a sense, very meaningful, not in the deep meaningful way of what is the goal of life and the goal of the world, but just meaningful in the sense of I see what I'm doing right now, and I get the results, and I feel good about it. You appreciate a lot more what you have when you see what goes into it, the work that goes into it. When you have people that you work together with, you appreciate things much more. One of the things I've been noticing, and I feel like people, one of the major things that's going on in the States nowadays, and why are people so upset, it's because there is no appreciation for the good that we have. It's never enough. And I'm not saying that there aren't real issues that people should be upset about. Of course there are. But I was listening to Thomas Sowell recently. He's a brilliant writer. And he was talking about how when he grew up, I guess 60, 70 years ago in Harlem, he was just talking about how they slept, everyone slept on the fire escape, in the summer because it was hot and there was no such thing as air conditioning. So everybody slept on the fire escape. He said when he talks to young people nowadays, they look at him like he's insane. Like, sleep on the fire escape? Are you nuts? I mean, first of all, dangerous, but like, why would you ever sleep on a fire? It's just crazy. And you had to do that. It sounds like torture. But they said that's everyone over the city, all over the city. Everyone slept on a fire escape, and you, thank God, you had a place to get outside and get some fresh air at night.
so just in a when we see where things come from, we work on it and we appreciate the value of what we do in our life and we appreciate hard work and what we get from it, it's a much happier life. Whereas, like I said, nowadays we're disconnected from where things come from, and we take so many things for granted, and there's just such unhappiness. And we think that by consuming more, we're going to be happier. But the truth is, if we worked on creating more instead of consuming more, we'd be a heck of a lot happier.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think that one of the interesting ideas also, we see how the entertainment industry is so number one, and it's so driven. And even like what you just mentioned at the end over there, the idea of, consuming more, and part of the reason why consuming more you would think would make you feel good more is because the entertainment industry and the marketing industry has been feeding that to people, right? Meaning we feed that to people. People are creating more, and they are trying to sell things more, and the way that they're selling that is they're falsifying the potential gratification, and overextending actually what it's going to do for you, meaning you're not going to fill all the different parts that you need by doing all these things. You need to align with that deeper part of yourself, and with that purpose and meaning. And I think that maybe it's like what we're bringing up is that in the world, because we've advanced one aspect of ourselves, but the other side is very much lagging behind, like the physical growth and the growth of the world, where we raised our quality of life physically has grown so much, and therefore the spiritual side is so deeply lacking. So that's what's making the friction of people being so out of whack, meaning it throws people off so deeply, as opposed to if we would raise that other level, or both levels would be growing together, we might be finding a much greater sense of happiness and purpose and alignment.
What's cool though is that in the world at large, there is such a movement, a very large movement, even though it might be subsumed by the headlines, but there's a very large movement towards spirituality and mindfulness and mental and emotional health. I mean, to me, nowadays, when I think of Mashiach, I think of maybe the greatest therapist ever, the one who will help us balance out. You talk about Mashiach is referred to as very much as an aspect of the sense of smell and the nose, right? Ruach HaPeinu. Ruach HaPeinu, Mashiach Hashem. Whereas Ruach HaPeinu is the ability, like, what do you do when you meditate? Deep and breathely through your, breathe in, deep and breathely. Deep and breathely through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Right? When you're angry, it's like those short breaths, but when you're calm, it's the deep, long erech hapayim. Now, these are not new ideas; these are old ideas. But that's the deep erech hapayim, the slow to anger and the ability to be calm and patient is all about the nose. So Mashiach is the one who will, like David HaMelech, the original Mashiach said, "Yigia kapecha kitochel ashrecha v'tovloch." Also, is that he'll take us back to learning how to find that equilibrium, find that spiritual balance, which everyone's looking for. And there is that movement out there. And I feel like it's like you're saying, there's a movement towards greater technology and greater ease of life. And there's going to be room for all of society and all of humanity to have the space to deal with their emotional and mental issues and spiritual issues eventually when we get there. But slowly it has to start with emotional and mental. But I feel like that's what's going to be. That's where we're going towards. But obviously nothing is easy, and so there's a major lashback from the other side, which doesn't want to let go. We're going to call it the ego, you want to call it the Yetzer Hara, you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. And so we have, at the same time as we, there's a fledgling movement towards spirituality, there's an even greater movement towards physicality and consumption and mass consumerism and all that. But it's gonna happen.
Yeah. I think also maybe on some level people need to start. I know for myself, let me put it that way. In my journey, definitely a lot of my growth has come from when I really began to ask myself the questions of, well, what am I really trying to get out of this? Meaning, we kind of have to reformat, and maybe as we were saying, we have to, the same way that we raise the quality of our physical living, we really need to work to raise the quality of our spiritual being. And a lot of that, I think, for me was asking the question of, what is my purpose? What am I here for? What am I planning on doing with this life? What am my belief system? What does it really mean? And is it really, these deep beliefs that I'm holding on to as a Jew, are they really manifesting in my daily living in my life? And how do I bring these deep truths into my life? And I think, like you said, there are so many people that are driving this. There's so many teachers. There are so many, people that are learning and are educating themselves and are really growing and saying, "Oh, how do I bring the Torah? How do I bring, this deep wisdom into my life in a way that it can really rejuvenate me?" And I wanna live that high level Yiddish, Hamish, good life, not just the potato kugel and the cholent and the herring and the and the l'chaims. I want what the beauty of the Torah and what it has to offer us. And I think that maybe in in some ways, I mean, in many ways, this has led to many of the people that have come and built up Eretz Yisrael. Obviously, there's been a lot of other drives from that as well. A lot of drives for survival to get to Eretz Yisrael, and a lot of drives simply to to have a country. But more recently, a lot of this aliyah and the drive to live in Eretz Yisrael comes from this place of saying, I need something more. I want to be connected to this inner burning. There's some shofar that's blowing, that's calling out to me. There's some deep bas call that I'm hearing. There's something that's reverberating inside me that says, I want to be connected to something more. I want to be connected to these deep truths that are inside of me that are not being nourished by the entertainment industry. They're not being nourished by all the things that I'm consuming. I need more. I need something deeper. I need something beyond. And Rabbi Nachman actually has a beautiful pshat. He says that about the people that live in Eretz Yisrael. It says the land what's the lashon? The land which
Eretz Ocheles Yosheveha?
Not Eretz Ocheles Yosheveha. No, the land where we eat.
Eretz Asher lo b'miskinut tochel
Yes,
ba'alechem.
thank
You will
you.
not eat bread in poverty.
Right. So Eretz Asher lo b'miskinut tochel ba'alechem. So Rabbi Nachman has a beautiful twist on that, and he says, normally somebody who's only eating a piece of bread, he's called a misken. It's sad, Gavalt. You can't afford anything more. You can't. Your whole party is just like a piece of bread. And so Rabbi Nachman says the reason for that is because many times you need a little more. You need the basa. You need the whole party to be able to give that sense of happiness and alignment. But when you're so happy, when you're so good, so he says the land, when you're in Eretz Yisrael, you're so nourished and you're so aligned with yourself as a human being. Eretz Asher lo b'miskenut, that people that are not misken, people that are perfectly happy, they're just eating bread and they're mamish feeling amazing. And obviously there's a lot of challenges here in Eretz Yisrael, and don't get me wrong, we have ups and downs, but there's a deep nourishment here, deep nourishment from this land, from being in this place where Hashem's eyes are there, from Mirashis Hashana Barach Rishana, a land where you're feeling that, and when you come and you taste of this incredible sweetness and this closeness and this aliveness, and then we go, Gewalt, like, where else could I live? And even though there's going to be so many challenges, and maybe even with all the challenges, or because of all the challenges, I'm feeling so deeply nourished from this living.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you're saying. Something I've been thinking about for years and years about how when Klal Yisrael left Mitzrayim, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, and we had to go into the desert for 40 years. And there's a lot of reasons why we ended up in the desert, and maybe not, 40 years obviously was the Meraglim. But before we went to the land of milk and honey and were able to really enjoy living a life of combined Gashmi and spiritual, before we were able to do that, we had to go follow Hashem out into the desert. Zacharti la chesed nurayich, right? Lechtech acharai b'midbar be'eretz lo zerua. Hashem says, follow me to the desert, and then I will take you to the promised land full of milk and honey. And I've had this thought for years since I came to Israel, that coming here nowadays is following Hashem into the desert. Because compared to where we grew up, this place definitely, and it's a lot less as time goes on, but when we came here and when our older siblings first came here, and when the Jewish people first came here, started the rebuild, this place was a desert, literally, and it still is in many ways a desert. It's a customer service desert with like a few oases here and there. It's all the good stuff that people think about. Zacharnu was a daga shanocha b'Mitzrayim. Like we look back to, Zacharnu was a hot dog shachalnu New York. B'shivtenu al sir habasar. Rabbi Maskowitz or Medrash Shmuel used to call it sir habasar, right? That was the Mitzrayim. Used to call the flesh pots of Flatbush. I used to always say that. The flesh pots of Flatbush. But look, it's good food, good eats, good things going on. There's a lot of things I miss about growing up over there. And, I miss having a nice big lawn, a front yard and a backyard and whatever, and all those good stuff. And the ease of ordering things and getting what you want. And if you don't like it, it goes right back. I bought a computer here a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, it doesn't work. I go back to the store and they're like, not our problem, call these guys. And I call these guys, well, it's not our problem, call those guys. It's like, this is ridiculous. You sell products you don't even stand behind. Okay, so I live in the midbar. But on the other hand, how do people survive here? How do you have parnasa? I have no idea. I don't. There's so many times that I don't know where the money comes. It doesn't make any sense. Hashem gives us man. Hashem takes care of people. Hashem takes care of us here. And eventually we're going to get to the land of milk and honey. Eventually we're going to get there. But first you have to say, God, I'm willing to follow you into the desert because I'm searching for that spirituality. I'm searching for that connection. And I'm willing to go to the desert. Like the mission of Perkei Avos says, not that you have to have that. There are different opinions of what that means, but certainly some of the Mefarshim say it's not that you have to have that. It's that you got to be willing to do that. If you really want spirituality, you got to be willing to do it. You got to be willing to say, what's more important to me? That I have, more than pas b'melach, or that I have my spirit, or that I have a spiritual connection that I'm looking for. I have meaning in my life, real deep meaning, and I really feel connected to what I'm doing in this world. So at this point, if people decide to leave the States and make Aliyah now, you're still leaving the fat lands for the desert. It's still the fat lands.
That's true, but let's be honest. It happens to be that Eretz Yisrael, in many ways, is doing so amazingly well. The economy is very strong. There is incredible goodness here. I mean, listen, if you want to look at the quality of eats and the quality of food and drink, and it's doing amazing. And in many ways, we're really top quality. But for sure, there's definitely certain challenges. But I think that it's not the same midbar that it used to be.
No doubt. What I'm saying is that if you want to come and really, like, to me, it's, why would you make Aliyah? Why will you come? Why you want to come to Eretz Yisrael? This is something like, I think we talked about getting into it maybe today. Why do you want to make Aliyah? Because you recognize there's a value here. Because you recognize that leaving maybe a little bit, even if it's just leaving a little bit of that consumer, a little bit of that overwhelming ease of life, and maybe it's not easy for everybody, and I don't want to, of course I understand everyone has their own issues, but leave a little bit behind, and okay, it's still biyachas, relatively it's still a desert in a sense over here in many ways. And if you wait too long, and chas v'shalom, I hope it doesn't ever happen, I hope America stays fat and good forever, but I'm afraid if you wait too long, it might not be like that. And if you're going to come because, hey, I can't stay in America anymore because it's not a safe place for me, or I don't feel comfortable, or I'm afraid of what's going to happen, then you're not really leaving because I want to go seek out the spirituality and I'm willing to follow you in the desert, God, because I want spirituality. I'm leaving because I'm running away from something. Like, it kind of loses a little bit of, the value.
For sure. I happen to think that, a couple of points that you brought up. I think that Israel's doing way better. I think that right now it happens to be that if you look at the options, like if you're going to choose where you're going to start out, it's hard to pick up and leave. But I mean, America is really scary the way it's looking right now. But that I agree with you. We can't be driving to Eretz Yisrael from a place of negativity. However, it's interesting. Somebody even mentioned to me recently, they're like, oh, now all these fear-mongering rabbis are now trying to get everybody to come to Israel because of, the fear of everything that's happening in America. And so my opinion was like, dude, seriously, during the fat years, did you move here? Like, it's not like you were here and then and then when things got tough, you were back in America. Now you have to get back here. Like, you haven't been here. So we try, Hashem has been trying it many different ways. Israel's been doing great, and it's been exploding in phenomenal ways. I mean, you can get a nice homes and nice cars and good food and good schooling, and it's Israel is Hodul Hashem. It's like doing ganz fine, great craft beer, etc. But like that didn't get you, so maybe Hashem's trying to see, like, okay, like what's gonna work. Sometimes you need a little more oomph to get you to go.
Yeah, look,
But
whatever works, the carrot or the stick, baby. One way or the other. What I'm saying is, come for the carrot, man, because that's the value. And I don't mean the carrot of startup nation, booming economy, and whatever that. I mean the carrot of looking for a quality lifestyle, looking to be alive. It doesn't even compare. It does not compare. We go back to the States maybe once every year or two for a little visit, and just does not compare.
I think also, like we were talking about, this advance in the Western world, or the advance of the world technologically, and the fact that we have like all the old Musar books, which I know many people, it kind of maybe doesn't work for everybody, but the truth is that when you look at those books and they say you got to choose, like sometimes you really need to choose. Like, if you're feeding this side, and this side is going to struggle, and if you feed this side, then this side is going to weaken. And like you mentioned before, to be able to really receive Torah, like you do need sometimes to be able to stop and say, wait, I'm not going to feed this, and I'm going to feed this. Like, I know for me, like, let's say when you want to go out to nature, if you want to go out to nature and enjoy the enjoyment of nature, many times it means giving up the comforts of sitting on your couch. And you can't choose the comfort level. You can't choose exactly what you want the AC to be on. And so you're right. It's a different appreciation. There's a different nourishment that's happening here. And we have to choose. What do you want? What kind of nourishment do you want for yourself? What are you deeply needing? And I'll tell you, I kind of want to jump into this because it's so involved in today's world, and because so many people are like, I'm supposed to move to Israel now because of the challenges in America. And I don't think it's just the challenges in America. I think that America itself is being hit with this question. It's not just American Jews that are being hit with this question. America itself is being questioned on what is the value of life. Right? We're hitting these points. We're really close. I mean, with the advance of technology, we're really close to artificial intelligence and to, wild advances, to the point where even now, as we advance, so to speak, and people are able to produce more, and you have more technology that's able to produce more things, the value of the individual is being questioned, right? You know, we should support mom and pop stores over the big brands. Why? What's the value? Why should I care if Walmart is putting tons of little people out of business? What do I care if Amazon is eating up every small person out there? And we say, well, it's wrong. There's something wrong about it. Well, what's wrong about it, right? Didn't we always say that the advance of of this technology and all this stuff is supposed to be helping us? Well, what's really the value? Now let's make a big jump. Artificial intelligence comes in. Suddenly, you're having tons more jobs, and of the workforce is going to be unemployed. What's the value of the workforce? What's the value of the simple individual? Is he valued? Right? If he's no longer bringing any value to the country economically, if he's not raising the value of the GDP, what value is that person bringing to this world? And the way that America has really moved to valuing people, we've forgotten, at least to me it seems, that a lot of things that are happening now in America are questioning the original principles of what happened in America, right? The original principles of what America was created on, which was the value of each person of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And yes, when they said that, they were enslaving black people. But you know something? We can either look at America as being the country that enslaved black people, or we can look at America as the country that has been evolving and actually pushed slavery away and is recognizing that every single person, regardless of the color of their skin, has a value of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, has core inalienable rights that are not based on the production level of that person. That there's, and unless you believe that there's something deeper in the value of a human being that needs to be nourished, that needs to be sustained, that needs to be wanted. When you have a conversation with another human being and you want to connect with them, it doesn't make a difference whether they have a high IQ or a low IQ, whether they're increasing the value of the economy. There's something there that we need to respect. And that question really begins to then is being asked to every person in America right now. How are we valuing life? And especially to the Jewish people, because I believe that we're here to be that shining light to the world. And we're here to take the story of Sinai, which is saying that there is a creator, and that creator has a purpose and a meaning for this world. And it's our job to bring it out to the world and to let the world know about this deeper level of purpose and meaning. And that's been our mission from Sinai. And now we need to be able to bring this out to the world and say, yeah, we do appreciate the value of human life more. There is something deeper. There is a spiritual side that needs to be nourished. And that's really what's scary to me in America. This breakdown. And people, it seems to me, people really are not getting it.
On either side. On any side. Doesn't feel like anyone is saying this. I really dig what you're saying, Yehuda. I feel like all of us need to ask ourselves again and again every day. And if you're still watching this, I want to leave you with a question. I want you to, when this recording is over, stop and ask yourself, what am I living for? What is valuable? What do I find valuable about other human beings? What is valuable about myself? What do I bring to the world? What does anyone bring to the world? And what is the point? We need to ask ourselves these questions again and again and again. And even if you think you know the answer, and I think I have a lot of answers, but I think we still need to ask ourselves this question again and again and again. What's the bas kol that comes out from Har Chorev every day?
Shuvu banim shavavim?
No. I don't know, but there's a bas kol that comes out. It says, I something from it, Me'al Baina Shel Torah. But anyway, it's not the point. The point is that the bas kol goes out every day. And it's asking you, like, yo, What's going on? What's up? Rab Nassan says also so many times throughout Likutei Halachos, he says, you have to constantly search for the truth. You have to constantly search for the emes. You have to constantly search for someone who's going to guide you in a truthful way. Even if you found what you believe to be the truth, even if you found your true path of life. So, okay, so let's say you grew up and you said, all right, religious Judaism, that's the thing for me. This is the emes. All right? But refine it again and again and again. Ask yourself, am I living aligned with what I believe, and what do I really believe? Because if we don't refine our beliefs and our aspirations all the time, then we just get old and stale, and we end up getting caught up in something that's not real. It's got to stay fresh.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I think that the question, for regarding Eretz Yisrael is, for people like thinking about Eretz Yisrael, at some point we got to think like, okay, at some point we do believe that Hashem is going to be bringing Mashiach at some point. We don't know exactly when. Maybe it'll be now. Maybe it'll be 100 years. We don't know. It's not going to be that long away, right? We know that there's some kind of, a bigger clock. And we also know that Eretz Yisrael, coming back to Eretz Yisrael, is part of the game plan. So what are we waiting for? What do we really believe in? Like, if we really believe all this stuff, when does it become reality? Like, when do we want to make the jump? It's always going to be hard. Like, I think all the time that living here in Eretz Yisrael and struggling as an immigrant is basically taking the pain from my children and grandchildren. It'll be much easier for them to live here in Eretz Yisrael than if I was, if they were themselves coming over. Like, it's tough. It's tough to make the jump from a different culture, from a different society, and getting used to it, learning, this language. But yet, if we do it, you're giving yourself and your children and your offspring like the greatest gift.
Yeah, it's true. It's one of the pushbacks against moving to Eretz Yisrael that people always go is, Ramosha Paskin, that living in Eretz Yisrael is only a mitzvah kiyumis, it's not a mitzvah chiyuvis, and so obviously it's not the most important thing, and it's such a chesed that Hashem did that He made it a mitzvah kiyumis and not a mitzvah chiyuvis. Because Hashem is giving it to us and He's saying, here's the land. Well, I talk about it throughout the Torah so many times. It's like the basis for Yiddishkeit. The Ramban says, if how many Torahs do you need? The Ramban says, if you keep the Torah in Eretz Yisrael, it's like, that's the real Torah. Out of Eretz Yisrael is just practice. The Gemara says, if you live in Eretz Yisrael, it's like you have a God. And if you don't, it's like you don't have a God. It's like you're disconnected from God. So there's enough to know how important it is. But still Hashem says, you know what? I'm not going to make it a chiyuv, because at the end of the day, I want you guys to pick me. I want you guys to choose. I want to give you the choice. What do you want? What do you want out of life? What's important? What are your core values? What do you really care about? And nowadays, no one's forcing you to live in Eretz Yisrael, because there's so many places in the world you could run away to from America. You don't have to come to Israel. I mean, you could go move to Thailand. It's really nice there. Super cheap. I mean, my buddy Yankee, he's telling me how cheap it is to live there. You can go live in Thailand like a king for nothing. And nowadays, with everyone's working remotely anyway, so why would you move to Israel? Move to Thailand. It's beautiful. It's cheap. Yeah, anyway, your kids are distance schooling. It's working out pretty decently. So you could hook up to maybe to the Chabad network of homeschoolers for Shlichim. Maybe that would work out. Why Israel? If you're for fear mongering, you don't have to move to Israel. There's plenty of places around the world. But if you ask yourself, and like, what do I want? What do I want? Why even religious? Why even Jewish?
Right.
Like, why do you want to be Jewish? Why do you want to keep the Torah? It's all about what you want. The Rebbeinu Shalom tells us, like the rock song goes, I want you to want me. I need you to need me. I'd love you to love me. I'm begging you to beg me. That's all Hashem, So Is it a mitzvah chiyuvis? No, because Hashem says, I'm not forcing you to do this. And in fact, if you stay in Chutz La'aretz, you don't really have to keep any of the Torah. It's all just practice. But you want to come? You want to come, like you can come and accept the Torah now for real in your life. Do you want to accept the Torah? Do you want to have a real chiyuv to keep the Torah? Come to Eretz Yisrael. It's all your choice. The entire Torah is your choice. Because you could stay in Chutz La'aretz, and if you don't keep the Torah, it's not such a big deal. Because you're not really mechuyev anyway. It's just practice. It's a derabanan. It's whatever. Do you want the Torah? You want to receive the Torah? So move to Eretz Yisrael where it's real. You don't? Don't. But it's all about your choice. What do you want out of this? What do I want?
Yeah.
To me, Yiddishkeit comes down to do what you want. Don't do what you don't want. But the hard part is figuring out the difference between those two things.
Yeah, really ask. Really, really ask. And choose and live the life that you want to live. Like, so many times, I'm so with you, because so many times we do things, and it's just like, choose it. Choose what you want to do with your life. Like, if you don't want it, don't do it. If you do want it, do it. But choose it. Take the opportunity. Like, figure out what you want and go get it.
You know, and another thing that people are afraid to move to Eretz Yisrael is, like, the boxes. There's all these different boxes. Or I have to be Haredi, you have to be Dati Leumi, and people come tell you, you have to choose one way, and that's the way, because otherwise your kids are going to be confused. You know what? I completely reject that way of thinking. I refuse to accept that, because Hashem gives us free choice, man. And you know what? What's happening nowadays is that the Yidden coming from America are bringing in such fresh air. Every Yid who comes from America, and they bring that, there's a lot of good vibes. I love USA. I love USA. Very good. Very nice place. But there's such a great vibe of where you're able to take, okay, I see something beautiful. There's all these different cultures, there's all these different ways, and there's beauty everywhere in all different people. Ezu chacham alomed mikol adam. And I'm able to take from all these different cultures and see what works for me. What do I appreciate? And the same thing nowadays in Eretz Yisrael with Kibbutz Galios, is Jews coming from all over the place. And if we learn to accept what's beautiful about all these different strains of Judaism and accept a little bit, okay, so I'm not entirely Dati Leumi and I'm not entirely Haredi, so I find my place in the middle. And if people don't like it, you know what? There's a whole bunch of people in our community who reject the boxes and say, I'm going to choose the way I want to serve Hashem. There's so much choice available. Don't get caught by the people who say, you have to be this, you have to be that. Hashem wants to give us free choice. Hashem wants us to be able to serve him in our own unique way. And that's what's happening nowadays. And the more Jews that come from America and say, we're open and we're going to be the uniters. We're going to be a melting pot Jew. We're going to be an America Jew, which is a beautiful thing. We're going to be a melting pot Jew. We're going to be the kind of Jew that accepts all different kinds and is open and tolerant and is able to daven one day in a Sephardi shul and one day in an Ashkenazi shul and one day in a Hasidic shul. That's okay. You could do that. You know what? We do that here. Thank God. It's all right. It's not so bad. Rant over.
Gewalt. Shkoyach.
Anyway, this has been a fun conversation. Somehow, no matter where we start, I feel like we're always coming back to Eretz Yisrael and what it means to live here. I feel like that's a recurring topic in our discussions.
I think that right now it's an essential topic in the world. I mean, I think it's been, it's definitely the question of our generation in many ways, is like, what does Eretz Yisrael mean to you? I'll tell you, it's just, I thought we were about to wrap up, but I know that, like, for me, learning Torah and connecting to Hashem, Eretz Yisrael seemed so core and elemental to me. And recently, I've begun to realize, and I guess maybe I was living in a little cloud, but I've begun to realize more and more how so many people, even people that know a lot of Torah, they don't see the value of Eretz Yisrael. They're just completely missing it. And it blows me away that somebody could be living and learning in a yeshiva, and yet, like, okay, Muncie, Lakewood, like, what's the mile of living in Beit Shemesh or especially the chaver that go like, well, if you're living in Beit Shemesh anyway, it's just like America. Like, no, it's not. It's absolutely not. There's no comparison.
Not at all.
Like, it blows me away how somebody can live and learn Torah and not see the incredible value of Eretz Yisrael. I mean, listen, maybe it's also that we have to talk about it this week because this week is Parsha Shlach. So there's no way to not talk about it this week.
No doubt.
Valt, I'll tell you, Chevra, the land is good. The land is so good. It's so beautiful. It's so sweet. I tell you, I'm missing being able to, thank God now that the quarantine has been lessened, to be able to get to the Kotel, Gewalt, to be able to walk this land, to be able to be here. Like, if it means anything to us, if Judaism means something to you, Eretz Yisrael has to mean something to you. If not, I don't know. Like, I would, maybe we have to get somebody on here to have the debate, somebody who doesn't see the value, and we could debate this out, because it just blows my mind. It blows my mind that people that learn Torah, that live their whole life, that they put their kids into Jewish schools, and they're sacrificing so much for Hashem and to be a Yid, and yet they just don't get Eretz Yisrael. Blows my mind.
Speechless. Rabbi Nachman, just to cap it off, Rabbi Nachman says straight up, if you want Ish Israeli. What does he say? I don't remember the exact line. I was just looking at it, but I couldn't find it. I thought I knew where it is. He says, if you want to be an Ish Yisraeli, you want to be a real Jew, a Yisraeli, the only way is when you're constantly moving up. You're constantly moving forward. He says, and the only way to do that is you have to be connected to Eretz Yisrael. Only with Eretz Yisrael. And so the Hasidim asked him, he says, Rebbe, what is this bechina of Eretz Yisrael that you're talking about? What is that? It's like some kind of spiritual level, some kind of spiritual place. And he goes, no. I mean Eretz Yisrael, like the houses, the dirt, the land. I mean the place, the physical place. Why didn't you move there? Okay, good question. But the fact is
he was
alive
Moshe Nefesh to come.
Yeah, he did. He went through a Napoleonic war to come to Israel. If you haven't read the story of Rabbi Nachman's journey to Eretz Yisrael, go and read it because it's insane. But that's it. There's no life. There's no life in the world like the life of Eretz Yisrael.
Gewalt. Anyhow, Yaakov, let's wrap it up. This was really, really gewalt. And there's definitely a lot of this conversation that we left unspoken. I think there's a lot more to talk about, and I want to get into Bezrat Hashem with some of our upcoming guests. Looking forward to really exploring some more of these concepts and topics.
There's so much. We could talk about it for days and days and years and years.
Amen. Be blessed, people.